Hi there. Welcome to the Imperfect Profit podcast for women who wonder. Frankly, as we go through life, I'm sure we wonder about a great deal. First as little kids, then as adolescents, then as young women, then as transitional women. What are we calling ourselves these days? And then you get to this point in life, or my point in life, when you're postmenopausal and wondering what's next. Wondering if the parade already passed you by. Join me, Wonder Wendy. I'm going to be your host as we talk about some of these unique challenges that face women today in a new millennium, going through menopause and trying to live a rich, full life. There might even be a few men and younger women that want to listen in too. That's okay. But there's a roller coaster and we're all on it. And I'm going to be your guide to help you figure out when you should close your eyes, when you should hang on, and maybe we'll explore some ideas for what works for you if it doesn't work for me, or vice versa. So join the conversation, pick up your favorite beverage, and we'll talk to you soon. Welcome to the Imperfect Profit.
Hey there. Today we're going to talk about menus, mislabeling, and knowing your own taste. In this episode, one single question, what do you like, takes me from a bar stool to a long-lost Monk and Coltrane recording and straight into the earned rage that comes from settling for what doesn't fit. This episode is about knowing your own taste, questioning the menu, and asking for the things that actually suit you. How about that? I hope you have a beverage handy. Because remember, things are always more congenial when we share a beverage. And now let's dive into the episode, shall we? It starts in a charming downtown Phoenix bar. Quirky decor, cute bartenders, and it's a quiet Wednesday night. My friend and I settle in at the bar, giggling as we almost tip over a bar stool as we're trying to dig under the bar to look for those lovely little purse hooks they put down there now. I love that those things have become standard, but why are they always so difficult to locate? Anyway, I look over the drink menu, and it's holiday themed, like, Christmas, which feels a little odd as we are entering the end of January. But that's what they were featuring. All the drinks feel gimmicky and really cute cups, and they look horribly sweet. Even the mocktails. As I'm scanning, I'm thinking, none of this suits me. None of this fits me. It doesn't feel right. Then my eyes land on a drink called the Secret Santa. I look at the bartender. There's no description of that drink. And I say, so is the Secret Santa a premix, or do you ask me what I like and try to please me? My friend is giggling. The bartender smiles. Maybe there was a bit of cougar energy in that moment. I'm not going to deny that. But instead of pointing back at the menu, he asks me a question. What do you like? I tell him my flavor profile for cocktails, that is, brown liquors leaning towards scotch and whiskey. Nothing too sweet, nothing gimmicky. Okay, I do love a quirky swizzle stick. A few minutes later, he comes back with a lowball, orange twist, simple and perfect. And that moment made me think about how often we settle for the menu instead of asking for what we really want. And here's the thing, that moment at the bar wasn't such a dramatic thing. It was just a quiet, practiced woman way of speaking. Because there is a version of me, and maybe a version of you, that just ordered whatever was on the menu. I mean, it's a popular place, and what's on the menu must be good, right? I could drink it politely, thinking, this is fine. I've done that most of my life. Ordered what was offered, smiled, told myself I shouldn't be difficult. And standing there, asking that question, I realized how, even though it was small, it felt revolutionary. That bartender would have been perfectly within his rights to say, the Secret Santa is just a white Russian with peppermint schnapps. And if he had done that, I would have found something I could drink on that menu. Who knows? Maybe it was just because the bar wasn't busy, or maybe I asked nicely. Maybe he just felt like being creative. Who knows why I won that roll of the dice? Now, last year I posted a meme that said, if you don't ask, the answer is almost always no. Sometimes you really do have to put yourself out there and ask. Now, the answer might be no, but it also might be a delightful custom creation that you'll remember fondly for a long time. Life is full of wonderful things waiting to be discovered. Which makes me think of a novel I read lately. Well, actually, I listened to it on Audible. That is the pace of my life. The book was Echo Park. And buried in it is the smallest reference to a 1957 recording by John Coltrane and Thelonious Monk. Just a line, easy to miss, the kind of detail you either catch or you don't. But here's what stopped me. That recording, that Thelonious Monk quartet with John Coltrane at Carnegie Hall, 1957, wasn't obscure because it was lacking in brilliance. It was obscure because it was misplaced. It was recorded live at Carnegie Hall, shelved in the Library of Congress, mislabeled, and forgotten. It sat in a box for almost 50 years. Not destroyed, not erased, not rejected, just overlooked. Until someone finally went looking, really looking, sorting through what everyone else had assumed was already accounted for. And when they listened, there it was. Brilliant, alive, sublime. Back to the bar. Holding that near perfect drink in my hand, it hit me. How many things in our lives are just like that recording? Mislabeled and missed because they don't fit in a category. Amazing and yet overlooked. Important, but their value is not yet recognized. Hidden because no one ever thought to ask if there was more than what was already labeled. They're not on the menu. They're not highlighted. They're not offered up politely in a neat description explaining why they should be chosen. They're backed, tucked away, unlabeled, and waiting. Waiting for someone to stop assuming the list is complete. Maybe just waiting for someone to stop confusing availability with possibility. That Monk and Coltrane recording didn't become extraordinary the day it was discovered. It already was extraordinary in 1957. But mostly it was only people who were there who talked about it. The only thing that changed was timing and attention. Someone stopped assuming that the shelves had been fully inventoried. And we do this with ourselves all the time. We assume if it mattered, it would have been easier to find. If it was meant for us, it would have been offered. If it was available, it would already be on the menu. So we choose from what's there, ready to wear, off the rack, even when none of it quite fits. And when it doesn't fit, we assume we're the problem. Too curvy, too loud, too much. And we call it realism, or maturity, or gratitude. Grow up and accept. That was a gag, by the way, for those of you that aren't watching the video. Be grateful for what you have. Be realistic. So we stop asking. We stop looking. We stop believing there might be something more, something truer than what's been handed to us. Instead of asking the obvious question, who was this actually designed for? Certainly not for me or these hips. I'm thinking of blue jeans. So difficult to find the one that is for you. but it's worth the hunt. Anyway, at some point in midlife, you realize that your body, your life, your desires were never meant to be mass-produced. Sometimes, just sometimes, the thing that would nourish us isn't missing at all. It's just waiting for us to ask a better question, waiting for someone to slow down, waiting to recognize its value. Too many of us are just like that recording, already brilliant, just not yet recognized. The authors don't become great because they win an award. Actors aren't better because they win a Tony or an Oscar. But once you're holding that award, suddenly everyone agrees you're a genius. We act like recognition creates value. It doesn't. It just confirms it publicly. That recording didn't matter more in 2005 than it did in 1957. The world's just finally caught up. And how many women do you know? How many parts of yourself have been waiting quietly for someone else to say, yes, you count? Stop assuming the list is complete. Who says the opportunity is past? Resist the temptation to assume if it mattered, it would have been easier to find. And this is where I want to pause, because something else lives right here. What a lot of us are feeling isn't annoyance. It isn't mild frustration. It isn't being a little fed up. It's rage. R-A-G-E, rage. Not explosive rage. Well, okay, if it stays pent up, it can explode. Not reckless rage. Earned rage. The kind that builds slowly after years of being polite. After decades of adjusting your expectations downward. After swallowing disappointment and calling it maturity. This kind of rage doesn't have to be destructive. It can be informative. Like when a doctor says, does it hurt when I do this? Ow, yes. It shows you where the fit has been wrong for a very long time, where you've been bending yourself to match the menu instead of questioning who wrote it and for whom. Where were you told, explicitly or implicitly, that wanting more was the problem? Rage is what finally cracks the illusion of this is just how it is. Right. And once that illusion breaks, something else becomes possible. Wonder. Not the soft, naive kind, not the glittery, everything happens for a reason kind, but grown woman wonder. The kind that asks, what else might be possible now that I refuse to pretend this fits? Now, for a lot of women, wonder doesn't arrive through hope anymore. It arrives through refusal. Refusal to keep ordering what doesn't nourish us. Refusal to praise discomfort as gratitude. Refusal to keep shrinking ourselves to protect other people's comfort. If you never let yourself feel that rage, you never get to the clarity. If you rush past it, smooth it over, or talk yourself out of it, you stay stuck in accommodation. Rage says something is wrong here. Wonder asks, what might actually be right? They aren't opposites. They are consecutive. That moment at the bar didn't begin with wonder. It began with, well, a quiet sort of rage, contained, practiced rage. Why is everything so sweet? Why does none of this feel like me? Why am I expected to choose from options that were never designed with me in mind? That rage turned into a question, and the question turned into agency. That's the path, and it's the same path that led someone to keep searching for that mislabeled recording. Somewhere on those shelves, they said, distrust the label. They assumed there had to be more than was visible. Rage doesn't end wonder. It opens the door. Maybe rage isn't the opposite of wonder. Maybe it's the gateway. Now, here's the caveat. Just because you ask doesn't guarantee a positive outcome. Remember the bartender? He could have said no. But it does increase your chances. Life is not an Amazon wish list where you can get everything you want just the way you like it. And this is where I'm going to get a little less polite. Because a lot of us, especially women, have been trained not to ask at all. We've been trained to take what's offered, to be grateful, to not make waves, to accept the menu. And honestly, I'm fucking tired of it. Tired of being told that wanting more is greedy. Tired of being told that asking questions is difficult. Tired of being told that the options in front of us are generous simply because they exist. No. Sometimes the menu is lazy. Sometimes it's outdated. Sometimes it was never designed with us in mind. Years ago, I was out at a restaurant with friends. The service was, shall we say, wanting. Now that I've dropped the F-bomb, you know I'm thinking much worse thoughts. The coffee and food were mediocre. When we mentioned it to the hostess, she did not acknowledge our concerns. She just said they were a top-rated breakfast restaurant in Phoenix and suggested we should go somewhere else. Whoa. Now, a younger version of me might have accepted that they were popular, and so for thinking my perception was flawed. I didn't. I didn't argue. It seemed hopeless. I didn't plead. I just chose differently. And in my online review, the title was, "The Hostess Suggests You Go Somewhere Else." And then I went into the details. I've never gone back. Now, there is a bitterness in recognizing how many times we knew what we wanted and talked ourselves out of asking because we didn't want to seem demanding or ungrateful or hard to please. But here's the truth. Acceptance is not the same thing as settling. Acceptance says, this is what is. Settling says, this is all that can be. And asking, real asking, is the bridge between the two, but asking from discernment, not desperation. One of my favorite phrases is, isn't there something you could do? The difference between please give me anything and I know myself. Let's start there. Now, that bartender didn't create magic because I flirted. He created it because I was clear. I knew my yes, I knew my no, and I trusted my own taste. And I trusted myself enough to say it out loud. So if this episode leaves a little bitterness in your mouth, good. Bitterness can be clarifying. It tells you where you've been tolerating instead of choosing, where you've been quiet instead of honest. And maybe the invitation isn't to burn the menu down. It might be tempting. Maybe it's just this. The next time you're offered something that doesn't fit, pause. Ask yourself, is this all there is? Or is there a conversation available here? Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can say isn't yes. And it isn't no. It's, what do you like? Or better yet, here's what I like. So bucket listers, where are you ordering off the menu? Where have you decided that what you want is too much trouble? There's air quotes on that one, right? And who taught you not to ask in the first place? Mix firmness in with your polite request. Don't be afraid to ask for what you want. We started with a drink menu that didn't fit and ended somewhere deeper. A question became a choice. Rage became information, and wonder found its way back in. Here's what I now know. The menu isn't complete. The shelves aren't fully inventoried. And knowing your own taste, well, that changes everything. So ask gently, firmly, if you need to, and clearly when you're ready. Because the things worth asking for are often waiting quietly just beyond the menu. And until next week, stay hydrated, stay rested, ask for what you need, and look for wonder every day. Keep building your wonderful bucket list life, because a life full of wonder is a life worth living. And if this episode made you think of someone, that's your cue to reach out and share it with them. Talk to you soon.
Like what you heard here today? Then we should be friends. I suggest you join my Facebook group. It's a good way to connect. We can have a conversation. Ask me questions, whatever you want to do. It is called the Wonderful Bucket List Life. That's Wonder-Full Bucket List Life. Be a bucket lister and join me on this adventure. Or you can go to my webpage, which is Wonder Wendy and Friends. Join the mailing list, learn about the book I wrote, adventures that are coming up in the future, and other podcasts. I look forward to talking to you soon, and stay hydrated. Have a great day.